To order. Judy, you have the roll.
Yes.
Chairman Whittick is out tonight, and I have no chairman's business. So first order, or third order of business, is approval of minutes from the October 12th, 2021 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any public comments or appearances tonight? It looks not. Any old business? Doesn't look it. So we'll move on to item 6, new business. A, consideration and possible action on a new storm sewer lateral construction policy.
All right. Okay. So, so in the past, what we have provided as a service to residents, and this was first recommended by Alderman Newmeyer, who was on the Board of Public Works, but we did it before then as well, is offer residents the opportunity, extend an actual invitation rather than waiting for residents to come to us, but extend an invitation to them to reconstruct either their storm sewer lateral or their sanitary sewer lateral as part of our street construction project and have the city's contractor perform the work. In the past, not too many people have taken us up on that offer, but the ones who have, we have performed that work and then billed them. And what was initially going to be just a bill to residents became a special assessment because property owners wanted to finance it over 5 years, which you need to have a special assessment in order to do that. So, but we're trying to clean this up so that there are there's more clarity, and this would be much better for us here because what typically happens is nobody contacts us after we send out that invitation in December, asking people to contact us if they would like to have this work performed. We don't hear from anyone until the contract's already started, and then they're searching for a plumber to do their own work because, of course, they have to extend the water from the sewer from the house to the street if we're talking about a storm sewer. And so, you know, we had this discussion at the council, and I reached out to our neighbors, Grafton and Cedarburg. Grafton didn't have a standard agreement. Cedarburg did. They charge a flat fee of $500 to connect to the storm sewer main. And what I explained in the memo is, so what it's, you know, a real simple concept, connecting a storm sewer lateral from a house to a main, but it gets a little confusing because it's the storm sewer unlike the sanitary sewer, the storm sewer does not run down the center of the street, and so some people can just connect to an inlet in front of their house. It's very easy. For some people, the storm sewer is on the other side of the street, so it's very lengthy. They're responsible all the way from their house to the street, or to the storm sewer main financially. So it's not really equitable. We certainly want people to connect who are having problems with stormwater discharge, whether it's over their neighbor's property line or over the sidewalk and then it freezes in the winter, or I'm sure you probably all encountered where it's on the sidewalk and it's become slippery and you can kill yourself slipping on it. So in any case, so we really want to encourage people to connect to the storm sewer system if they have a sump pump that runs frequently. So, and what we've encountered just reconstructing East Butel back in 2007, and then now West Butel in 2021. You know, there's certain areas of the city where there's a lot of groundwater, so some pumps run all the time, as opposed to some areas where they don't run at all. So in our established subdivisions, there are many streets with storm sewer, many streets without storm sewer, and so this leads to questions that come up when we offer this request or the invitation for people to connect to the storm sewer, and then they ask if they can connect. Well, there's no storm sewer on their block. So how far do we want to go to, connect someone? Because at $56 a foot, a 100-foot wide lot, that's over $5,000, right? So it gets pretty pricey. So what I am recommending, I lay out here, but essentially is, and I don't know about the fee, so I just chose $500 because that's what Cedarburg uses. It could be more than that, it could be less than that, it could be free, I suppose. But what I ask is that any homeowner that would have the city's contractor install the line to their property line offer some sort of assurance that they will connect from their house, because this is an investment on the city's part. We don't want people to just have the city perform this work and then that's being defrayed by the city and then not use the connection. So I think we need buy-in from the residents. So anyhow, I lay out a timeline so that now, I think part of the reason that people didn't respond in the past is that they didn't know what the price was going to be until we got bids from the contractor, and that's not until March or April. If we just have a flat fee of $5 or $6 or $7 or whatever it is, $100, we can give that information right away in December prior to the public information meeting, and then allow them the opportunity to make a decision, say by January 1st. And then if we have a request on a block without storm sewer, I can bring that to the board and we can make a decision, or I make a recommendation and a decision on whether or not we want to extend storm sewer to the house that's making the request. So perhaps it would make a difference if it's the first house that doesn't have storm sewer or 5 houses down the block that doesn't have storm sewer. So that's my recommendation. What I've been doing thus far is just doing this administratively, and in a year like this year where we had many people interested and relatively large number of people who took us up on it, it just became kind of an administrative issue, and then there wound up, as you know, being some confusion amongst at least one of the property owners, and so we want to eliminate that, clear up headaches for staff, me, and really promote connecting to the storm sewer. So that's kind of laying out the issues. I hope that was clear, and I would welcome any input or suggestions you have.
Alderman Sigrid?
Yeah, Rob, let's just take a couple of hypotheticals for a minute, okay? In the old part of the city, there's some downspouts that are actually getting into our sanitary sewer, where they're connected to the foundation drain, which goes to the sanitary. We're fortunate there aren't a lot of those.
Okay.
That does exist, right? Those people could have the same opportunity, right?
Yes.
They don't have a sump pump.
Right. Yes, it wouldn't be right. Any clear water drain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number two, when people connect their sump pump, are you going to require that they connect their downspouts also?
No.
So their downspouts could still have a black hose running out across the sidewalk, creating a problem, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so for instance, our subdivision code requires only sump pumps be connected to storm sewer. So anytime we develop a subdivision, every home needs to connect their sump pump to the storm sewer, but not their downspouts. With the reason being is, the downspouts, they only function when it rains. And so it's really not the nuisance kind of a problem that a sump pump is. So these some people, there are people who tell me that their sump pumps run literally
time.
constantly.
Yeah.
So, so that's what leads to, yeah, moss growing on the sidewalk, ice buildup, but generally not from downspouts.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is true in a new subdivision, if there isn't storm sewer in front and they have what I call positive rear lot drainage, it could drain to a swale or to a storm sewer at the rear of their property, right?
Right. Yes, that's an
And that would
alternative.
qualify.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Right. Yes. Yep. And then to clarify your one point about downspouts being connected to the sanitary sewer, the answer to the question is none that we know of, because if we know of them, that's a violation of the plumbing code, and so we do take corrective action in those circumstances. So if you know of any, let us know. So, yeah, and what we do know, or what we suspect, but of course don't know, is that some people in winter, to avoid icing, they connect their sump pump to the laundry tub. And so anything we can try to do to keep that clear water out of the sanitary sewer system, it benefits everybody.
Over the years, we've proven that's almost impossible to monitor.
Yes, so we do,
Yeah.
yeah, we do check that when we're in the homes, checking for cross connections and exchanging the water meters, but that's every 20 years, so.
Alderman Tierney?
Rob, just to clarify a couple of things for me. So if we would establish this fee, but the homeowner would still be responsible for, like in that case that we had where there was some confusion with the woman who came in.
Right.
She didn't seem to understand that she was going to have this she was going to have to pay to have the route plus the plus
Right,
whatever our fee.
right. The confusion is, I mean, as I tried to piece that together, is I think the message that she heard from the contractor was that he was taking care of everything. So the contractor, who's well known to us, told us that he clearly informed each resident that there would be an extra cost from the city, but she didn't understand that. And so if we get this, so in the past, we've just done it by email. So if somebody emails me, well, the person that we're talking about apparently doesn't use email. And so that created a problem. And so we didn't have a paper trail. And so like Alderman Gasper suggested at the meeting, seeking one of these municipal agreements. And I'll be honest, I had not thought of that before. And so was able to, come up with this one from Cedarburg. And I think it's a great idea. And so that's why we're discussing it. And it's very timely because we're heading into December again.
But so again, this is, I mean, there would still be these two fees.
Yes,
So
right.
I guess that's what I want to make sure we're
Yes,
clear on.
and
that the public is clear on.
right. And, I'll look at that agreement again, but yeah, we'll make it, I think, perfectly clear. Certainly part of it is the agreement is, like I said, you have to have it done within 2 months, or there's essentially the penalty that you have to pay the entire city cost, whatever the entire city cost was, if you don't connect. That's what I came up with. Because people will tell you they're going to do work and then they don't do it. So they're and waiting a year, I think that, which is what Cedarburg has, and then they don't really have a mechanism, at least in their agreement, to force the person to do it. So that's my idea. So, and someone who's signing it, they know what they're getting into, and there shouldn't be any question later, hopefully.
Thank you.
Well, I'll let Phil.
You have what happens if mid-July I find out I have a flooding problem and need to have it done?
Yeah. What I would recommend in that case is for them to hire a contractor to perform all the work and just take out a permit from the city to perform that work in the street and then just to do it all privately. Yeah, that'd be my recommendation. Because I don't want to get caught in the situation we got caught in the last time when like it was literally made. The decision of these homeowners to connect was literally made on the last possible day that the contractor was working on site on storm sewer. So we need to have some hard and fast deadlines so that, again, we don't wind up having a misunderstanding because of last-minute agreements. And I can't drop everything to run out to someone's house with one of these agreements on the last day to sign or something like that. So I just want to take care of it well in advance. So, but yeah, that would be the option. So they wouldn't be without option. They would just have to hire their own contractor. So, and if they didn't do it before they have to do it before the pavement gets down. Otherwise, they're not getting a street opening permit.
All right, and then looking at, you're saying the $500. What would be a realistic numbers? What's our average cost to hook these up? Instead of just saying, well, Cedarburg does it for this amount.
Sure. Well, again, so say if you take it from the middle of the road, if you were to balance it to the center of the street and say it's $50 a foot, that's to the right of way. If it's a 60-foot right of way, that's $1,500. So it's subsidized quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But as I said, there's some common good to encouraging it, and so that's why I don't think it's a bad idea to defray that cost for the homeowner, to encourage them to connect. But I mean, that's really a policy decision that I'm looking for guidance from the board. So,
Okay.
John?
Yeah, what was the amount that was to be assessed against the property owners on Randy Circle?
this year it was everyone, and so again, I did this administratively, and that's why I want to have it, something that's an established policy. It was approximately $850 per house. So, and then I think the fee that they were charged by their contractor to connect from the house to the right-of-way line was $1,600. So, yeah, so it winds up being a $2,400 investment, but I mean, that's how bad the water situation is for these people. They're willing to pay it.
One other hypothetical, if I could, Orchard Lane is going to be done this year.
Right.
And we have my favorite storm sewer that comes over or sump pump that comes over the curb mid-block.
Yep.
One of the solutions there could be an inlet at that location and then take the water down to the intersection with Pierre Lane. That would be probably a good thing to do because you'd have a mid-block collector also, because back when I was doing many sewers in the city, I took a lot of heat because they were viewed as not being standard storm sewers, which they're not. Our minimum size is 15-inch for a lead 12-inch, I believe, right?
Yep, 12-inch.
So we're building 6-inch, which means that they're being installed at about 1% grade, right?
Right.
If you went to 8-inch, for example, and not a lot more cost, okay, not a lot for PVC, you'd go down to like 0.4%.
Right.
So in case where that would happen, you could do that, right? I mean, you picked 8 inches there because you had the grade. You had enough grade.
Sure. And I mean,
6 inches, excuse me.
yeah, I mean, as far as the grade goes, it's all clear water. There's no, the reason we put a 12-inch in everywhere is for a storm sewer lead is really to keep it from clogging.
Right.
So it's if you don't have any opportunity for sticks and leaves and solids to get in there, I would think other than maybe freezing, which it shouldn't because they're all 4
But
feet.
you don't really ever anticipate cleaning these,
Right. Yes.
which
yeah,
makes sense.
right.
All right, thanks.
Well, I guess the idea of having more of a nominal cost, I guess, is somewhat appealing in that we can estimate the costs and see what they are year to year and come up with a standard cost for everybody. That way, they do know in December what it's going to cost because the city is going to either finance that remainder or make a little profit that year off of it, however it would work out. One thing I'd wonder on that, well, right now, when we do the mini sewers, are we charging with the special assessment, the splitting up the cost of doing the mini sewer up the street? Or is that the city financing that and then just the laterals are being charged?
Just the laterals, yeah.
Okay.
So far, the city has financed any extension of the sewer.
Okay, because these are all, doing this is nominal, well, on occasion it helps prevent ice like on the sidewalk, but nominally it's to reduce clear water going into the sanitary system. Could we leverage funding from the sanitary utility to help mitigate some of this cost?
You could, yeah. I think you probably could. I think in most cases, it's right. It's basically stormwater discharge from sump pumps is a nuisance to property owners. When it becomes a problem for the sanitary sewers, when they eliminate the nuisance by discharging into their laundry tub. So yes, it would be, I think you could justify the sanitary utility participating in the cost if you chose.
And one of your questions is basically, should we extend these mini sewers everywhere where there's not currently, correct?
Yeah.
So right now, are we just basically making that decision based off of if anybody wants that connection or not?
You know, it doesn't come up a lot. Normally, like for instance, there was one this year where three houses down, they were interested, and when they found out the cost of just what they would have to pay, they weren't interested anymore, so it never got that far, but I wasn't too keen on extending a mini sewer 3 houses just for one house. But on Randy Circle, we had 4 and they were all together. And so honestly, it was expensive, but at least it made sense that we were serving 4 houses in a compact area, relatively compact area. So, but you know, instead of me making these decisions, I'd rather have them understood by everybody.
Yeah, I worked on a highway project once where for every home, we went and extended a mini sewer past it and then put a stub out with a locator ball so they could connect in the future. Now, that was in Oshkosh, which is so flat that when the road was dug up and it rained, there were fish swimming up and down the street. But you know, that something like that might encourage more hookups, but it also is a lot more expense too, unless, you know, if we're doing a PVC past everyone's house, are we doing just a stub there at all for each connection? Or we're just going straight across and they'd have to add a T in the future?
Well, I'm not sure.
So say we're going past houses that aren't putting in storm sewer. Are we leaving just putting a T there with
Oh.
a stub just so?
We've not done that before.
Would that be a huge expense to do it? Or is that after the fact connection so rare it's not worth it?
Oh, well, I mean, as far as just extending a mini sewer for future connection?
Say we put the mini sewer in because we're doing 3 houses on this block and we have 2 in the middle that don't want a connection right now.
Oh,
So if they'd want to add one later, they'd have to come back and cut the pipe and.
right. Which, yeah, I mean, let me put it this way. Adding a Y would probably not be very expensive. But, you know, again, at $50 a foot on both sides of the street, it adds $100 a foot. And so, you know, so on a mile of street, it's fairly expensive. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what? That's $500,000. I mean, that's
There's only one house.
that just, well, okay. So you would assume that there's at least storm sewer on half of that. So you'd be talking $250,000, but that's significant. Especially people aren't connecting to it. And I wouldn't do it as a matter of, the reason I wouldn't do it as a matter of just policy to do that on every street is because, like I said, we go in plenty of neighborhoods where they will tell me their sump pump never runs. And so then that is a terrible waste. So, but there may be, we may be doing another street in the future. I don't know, where at the public information meeting, which is what makes these meetings so valuable to us, is because I don't know how often people sump pump run until they come and tell us. So, and they may not tell us unless we invite them to tell us. But this seems to be like what we just did on Butel. That seems to be kind of the worst area of the city so far. Though I know, like in Greystone, they have their sump pumps run all the time, but there they have sewers.
Yeah, Alderman Sigwart.
It seems to me that the people this year paid about $850. Mm-hmm. The $500 is basically arbitrary.
Yes.
I'm thinking that something closer to that number might be more palatable for both the city and the residents that paid $850. So something like $750
It'd be splitting
Might be-
it in half, basically.
might be reasonable, okay? Because it's kind of like that, like you said, if it's $1,500 to make the connection, it'd be 50/50, which I think is always a good solution. Maybe no one's really happy, but no one's really in the tank either.
Sure.
I think the idea, Rob, is excellent to have a cutoff for December 31st. I think that's really good because, I don't know how successful your online meetings are for public informational meetings. They,
It was good last year.
was good?
Yeah.
okay, because that's kind of the key because you've got to engage the people so they understand what's going on.
Right.
Besides your really good letter that you send out to them telling them that they're going to tear up the whole thing for 3 or 4 months. Okay.
Right. But yeah, this way, I mean, if we have the December 31st cutoff, Grummer's pretty much has their plans completed by the first week of February. So now it's included in the plans. What we've been doing is kind of winging it. Yeah, just adding it, after the fact because people are coming to us after the fact. And I have to remember, I'm keeping track of all this. It's not really the best. So again, this year we had more interest than we normally do. It's a little more manageable in other years, but still, if it's just in the plans, then it's done. I don't have to remember anything. It's completed well ahead of time. So I think it's good for everybody.
Alderman Tierney.
Just one, got to thinking after some of what you were saying. What's our policy on new subdivisions? Do we put storm sewers in there, and do we tell that the sump pumps have to connect?
Right. So the developer, it's part of our municipal subdivision code, and so they're required by ordinance to install that every home has to connect to the sewer system. So whether that's a sewer line that runs in front of their house or a drainage easement in the rear, and yeah, so the building inspector is supposed to make sure that occurs. But like I know in Belinsky, where they have some rear, they're supposed to drain to the rear. The plumbers all discharge them to the front of the house. So some mistakes do happen, but that's the intention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions? All right. So, Rob, are you looking for us to give you definitive answers to each of the 4 questions, or we're looking for a general sense of the board?
Let's see. So I would, so I think, I said if approved, next steps would be to create a resolution, creating the policy. So I can bring that resolution back to the December meeting with everything. And then we have the resolution, and then it's in writing and easy to follow. So I'm just, I think the guidance that what I'm hearing is if everyone's okay with the $750, we'll go with that. But everything else would be per my recommendation, which is the dates and such. So,
What are we on the idea of, like Mike was talking about, whether we're going to go buy 3 houses to just add 1? Do we have a policy on that?
Yep, so the policy any requests we get where there isn't storm sewer currently would be brought to the Board of Public Works. So it would be a case-by-case basis. Yeah.
Yeah, so on, item one, should all residents have the opportunity to connect? I guess that would be based off of whether there's a demand, whether there's a need. Since the residents are paying for laterals too, the mini sewer, in my mind, could be justified as being paid, either directly by the city or through the sewer utility, the sanitary utility.
Sure.
But, yeah. Yeah, I guess that's all I got on that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I have the wishes of the board in mind, and I can create the resolution for the December meeting.
All right. If we have no other discussion on this, we'll move on to item 6B, discussion and possible action on submitting a full proposal for grant funding from the Fund for Lake Michigan for resiliency planning on Saw Creek and Valley Creek.
All right. So this actually, so this is work we've been looking at doing and have discussed. Well, I've discussed it with our consultant Stantec for a number of years, and have kicked around in house with our staff. So the Lakeshore Natural Reserve Partnership, they themselves have a grant to promote coastline resiliency planning, and so that that can apply to the actual shoreline or to waterways leading to Lake Michigan. And so, because we have had a number of events, and we anticipate there'll be more events coming, which can lead to flooding and erosion of stream banks and flooding downstream or even upstream, and its effect on utilities that run along the stream. So we have, for instance, along Valley Creek, we have the interurban trail, which the creek is creeping closer to in several areas. Also, we have sewer and water mains running down that corridor, and so again, in areas the creek has been eroding, and so the water and sewer is in danger of being undermined by, for instance, if we got a 10-inch rain or something along those lines. So, we don't know how any one rain event is necessarily going to affect erosion in a storm event, but I don't want the integrity of our sewer and water main to be in question for when that would occur. So in any case, so we've been working with Lakeshore Natural Resource Partnership and the people that they've hired, which are also from Stantec. They submitted an application on our behalf to the Fund for Lake Michigan. We were fortunate enough to hear from them last week that they've accepted our pre-proposal, and they're inviting us to make a full proposal. And so hopefully you had a time to read the narrative and some of the activities that we've identified in order to prove the watershed. The great thing about the Fund for Lake Michigan is there's not a local share requirement. They like to see a local share that there's some sort of buy-in, but you're not held to it. We included, in addition to Valley Creek, Saw Creek, and so the work that we're already spending money on and have received grants for, the Spinnaker West Pond and the Spring Street and Garfield box culvert improvements, those can all be applied as a local share towards, again, resiliency planning for these extreme wet weather events that we're experiencing on a more frequent basis. So we can apply those funds as an indication of our investment in our community. So let me go down and talk a little bit about some of the things. So actually, I'll put it up on the screen if that's all right. Dan. So I'll just read first, and then we can look at an aerial view of it. But so starting with the replacing of the existing culvert under Norport Drive with a bottomless culvert. So that has two benefits. Number one, that culvert is proven to be too small. It's inadequate. So it's for these extreme events that the culvert can be topped. Obviously, enlarging it reduces the chance that it can become plugged as well. And then creating a bottomless culvert allows for fish passage or wildlife passage. So it improves the situation there, makes it eligible for funding. Stream bank improvements in Antoine Park. So the stream banks there and really all along Valley Creek are severely degraded. But of course, this is in our park. We have a number of invasive tree species. We've done internally some improvements there, but what I have envisioned for at least a decade there in that park is something more akin to what we did at Saw Creek, where it runs through into Mineral Springs Creek at its confluence with Lake Michigan, right? So what we did was we peeled back the stream bank, made it more accessible for people, and improved the vegetation. And so that's the vision I have for that creek bank, to make it more of a feature of that park, and perhaps even if we could get some grant funding, create a little pedestrian bridge that would go over the creek. I think that would connect the two, essentially the two pieces of the park that aren't connected, and I think really be an attraction. And then just south of Antoine Park is there are a number of private property owners that have severely degraded shorelines. And so we would be able to offer technical assistance to them so that they can, protect their yards. Stream bank stabilization and naturalization of the eroded and degraded stream banks between Hales Trail and Lake Street. So if you've walked the interurban trail, you've probably, some areas look okay, but some are again cutting back and jeopardizing the integrity of our utilities and the interurban trail itself. The possibility of improving or establishing recreational trails that are located adjacent to the creek. So right now there's the dirt bike path, but looking for ways that perhaps there could be more recreational opportunities associated with the stabilization and naturalization of the creek. Recreation of Gunther Pond, which was at one time a spring-fed pond with an artesian well. So that was, I don't know when, maybe you do, John, but when it was, yeah, I thought so. So if you've ever walked back there, you may have noticed there's a corrugated metal pipe that discharges constantly into Saw Creek. I've always thought that was perhaps not the most natural solution to addressing stormwater or groundwater. And so, but it would require someone, much smarter than me to determine the best way to reestablish what nature intended. So, so perhaps the recreation of the pond, perhaps just a spring-fed creek that would run into Mineral Springs Creek, and again, kind of restore what was originally there.
There's a second pipe there too that goes from where the wishing well used to be.
Okay, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. But yeah, I think there, I don't know. So what this is it's a planning grant to investigate these things and then to see if there's a value in going further with them. So, so again, this is an opportunity to investigate all the potential improvements that could be made to this watershed. So, and it would include, again, planning and essentially a little more work to look at the possibility of the removal of the box culvert in Lower Lake Park and reestablish of a more naturalized waterway. Again, we don't know if these things are going to be desirable or feasible, but we have discussed those, and they are in reports that we've created prior and could, that would be the surest way to prevent flooding in the area that we've had, which have created problems for the water filtration plant. And then ecological restoration within the publicly accessible park properties to increase native species diversity and provide enhanced wildlife habitat. So getting rid of the invasives and essentially establishing more, essentially what they did, what John Crane and Derek Stroll and the Environmental Planning Committee have done in Birchwood Hills, kind of taking that and performing that work south of there. So I think hopefully everyone is aware of the great work that they've done in Birchwood Hills and essentially doing that type of work on an even more extensive basis. So I think we have the map kind of highlighting these areas. Of course, here's Birchwood Hills. Here is Northport Drive, where we're looking at the bottomless culvert. Antoine Park, where we'd like to improve creek access and get rid of and eliminate the degraded shoreline. Assistance to private property owners in this area who have degraded shorelines, going all the way down. This is all city-owned property, improving these shorelines, possibly installing recreational trails. And then down here is, make sure I get it right. Yeah, down here is Gunther Pond, possibly reestablishing the artesian spring that feeds the creek, but do it in a more natural way than corrugated metal pipe. And then, of course, the box culvert that runs underneath Veterans Park and the possibility of improving that waterway. So our intention is to submit this final proposal in, I think it's due the first week of February. And so again, there's no investment on the city's part. This is all being paid for by the LNRP. I'm of course working with them, but otherwise the actual grant writing is performed by Stantec, again, at using the grant that they received in order to seek these funds. And then if we get these funds, there's essentially the funds that we're committing are would just include the funds that we've already budgeted. We have $100,000 in the capital fund for improvements to Valley Creek. So we do have that financial commitment, plus what we've already committed towards the Spinnaker Pond, and we have the costs associated with designing the box culverts next year on Spring Street and Garfield in the budget as well. So and then money that we would normally spend on stormwater and stormwater management. So I guess what I'm saying is there's no commitment on the city's part beyond what we've already committed to, and the possibility of bringing in $250,000 worth of planning expertise.
Since this is including Saw Creek area as well, There is one homeowner immediately downstream from the Grand Avenue Bridge on Saw Creek who's been having a significant amount of erosion of their yard. Is there any way for something like that to be fit into this as well?
Yeah, I can sure ask. Yeah, I mean, it's
Since we're
limited
doing
to,
homeowner assistance upstream.
right. Sure, I can certainly inquire.
And I'm sure you know what property I'm referring
I
to.
do.
You do, okay.
Yeah, we haven't talked in a while, but okay.
I have one comment about Valley Creek. Whenever we have a really hard rainstorm, I tend to want to go down to Inventor's Brew Pub, not just to sample the ale, but to take a look at how the trash rack is working. I got to say that I thought that was a lot of money for a trash rack, Rob, but it sure works well. That's number one. Number two, when we were and it's such a flashy creek that it was really at low flow the other day. I walked up quite a ways. I've never seen it in its natural state, but it's completely stripped of vegetation. Some places almost vertical walls. I mean, it's
Right.
Is the DNR still opposed to energy dissipators? I mean, they keep taking the dams out of all the rivers so that the fish are more comfortable. But this is a place where we may be able to slow some of that flashiness, which is just incredible. I mean, it almost beats me down there. If it rains real hard at my house on the north side, by the time I get down there, it's already cascading into the trash rack.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's a severe problem because it's not going to get better on its own. That's for sure.
Right. Well, yeah, and I mean that's why I think this planning grant is so important to get ahead of it because I don't want to wait until the next 10-inch storm to do something about this. I want to be proactive so that we're ahead of this because to get this grant and to perform the work, and then even if God willing we can perform all the construction that's recommended by this planning, that's going to take several years, and we may well get a large storm event prior to that. So I don't want to wait for catastrophe to happen to do something about this.
What are you looking for in the way of a motion to continue?
Yeah, I think.
Are we recommending to the council, or what are we doing, Rob?
Sorry, I
confused.
don't. I think. I think my recommendation. I gotta look. I'm sorry. I have to look back to see if I was. I assume that you would be supportive of this. And again, there's no financial commitment, so I don't know that necessarily we need a motion, but I think it would be. I think. I think that a motion by the board to submit the full application would be good to have on record.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we recommend that to continue to pursue the funding for resiliency planning, which is a brand new phrase to me, Rob, by the way. That's kind of a 2000 phrase.
Yes, it is.
To continue the resiliency planning for both Saw Creek watershed and Valley Creek watershed.
All right, we have a motion by Alderman Segwert. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Phil. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item of business, 6C, consideration and possible action on a change order to the agreement with Gremmer and Associates for designing permeable pavers on Lake Street.
Okay, so this came up, last year. Of course, it was our hope to squeeze this in under the 2021 program. We wound up finding it to be a better idea to wait until 2021 and or 2022, and I'm glad we did for a number of reasons. But in any case, during the design process, Alderman Gasper suggested that we consider permeable pavers as part of the design of these improvements. And so, that was not part of the original scope of work. And trying to pivot and accommodate that request, because of course we were looking to we anticipated reconstructing the street in asphalt like we do all our streets. And so to try and accommodate that request, we considered an alternate bid scenario, but really to do that, as I describe in the background discussion paragraph in your memo, we anticipated putting a lot of that on the contractor, but that really doesn't, the problem isn't, it's not just swapping out one pavement type for another. So it's not just swapping out asphalt and base course for permeable pavers and the underlying aggregate. It has a lot, the storm sewer system and the way you collect the drainage can change dramatically. And so to really be able to make an informed decision, we felt that it was better to do the design work, to have our engineer perform the design work. So I asked Gremmer to come up with a number that it would take. He said that their estimate was between $7,000 and $12,000, and it was actually their decision to just say we'll do it for a lump sum of $7,000, which I thought was actually a very fair price to do the engineering. And so to answer the questions that, of course, you'll have, which is how much more is the initial investment? And then, of course, what are the benefits? How much less stormwater infrastructure do you need to construct? What is the life cycle cost analysis? What is the ongoing maintenance? Of course, having a permeable paver system requires the pavement to be swept on a regular basis. I'll be honest, I'm not, we don't have any permeable pavers in the city, so it would be something new for me. And, sometimes these systems fail. So that's, anything new is a little bit challenging, but I think the concept of permeable pavers, I think can be a great idea and have a good look. So, as in talking offline to Alderman Gasper, he had mentioned a desire to see this on other streets, which makes sense to me, that we wouldn't just do it on Lake Street. Perhaps it would be all the streets east of Franklin Street if we were to go this route. But kind of goes hand in hand with this downtown planning document that we're creating. Well, there's a downtown walkthrough on Thursday. So we're in the process of creating that. So if the downtown plan calls for pavered streets east of Franklin in the downtown area, the Marina District, whatever you want to call it, I think that would provide us the direction that we need rather than just having it on Lake Street. So I guess I would leave that open to discussion with the Board of Public Works. I didn't have a recommendation on it. I could go either way. Obviously, the simpler way to go for me is the way we always construct streets. But God bless you. But I also am not afraid to try new things if that's what the board would like to see. And the only investment that you'd be asked to make tonight is the additional $7,000 to do the engineering. So the hard decision doesn't come until maybe a month from now. Well, at the earliest, a month from now, we'd have more information. So some of the information we've been gathering ahead of time is you may recall, there's some contaminated soils in the area. And so that was the first thing we needed to check off was do we want to run stormwater through contaminated soils? And the word we have now so far from our environmental consultant, which we did include in the original this design for 2022, anticipating this issue, is that there shouldn't be a problem having permeable pavers even with the contaminated soils. So that's the ruling we're getting. So that was the first hurdle to get over, just in case that would be on anybody's mind.
Alderman Sigwart?
I guess I'll direct this to you, Mike. You grew up here, okay? I've only been here 50 years, okay?
Which is still
When we
longer
tried to
than-
You
dredge,
still got 7 years on me. then.
Yeah, right.
when we tried to dredge the sandbar at the old launch ramps, we tried to do it with a drag line, and it was clay. It wasn't sand. Okay, so we had to build a platform out of timbers, and a huge backhoe from Elmer Yankee out of Fredonia came in, and they dug that out because it was hurting props, et cetera, when we'd launch boats, okay? I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of sand there, Mike. Okay, that's number one, okay? We just did several borings at the water filtration plant. Did you see those, Rob?
I've not. Part of our contract with Bremer includes soil borings on all of on every block of streets we design.
Oh, okay.
So so we're going to get actual soil borings in
I think
the street.
I envision these permeable pavers as being more aesthetic than problem solving. Okay, in other words, they look really good. Okay. The first question I have is, do we have equipment that can vacuum that surface, Rob?
The answer is I think so. Yeah, I think
so, too.
our new vacuum
New vac haul
sweeper is
we could use.
would be it's state of the art. So if it's not that one, I don't know which one it would be.
There are firms out there too that have the equipment that go in, because you have the sand layer in between the bricks on top that's a fill medium, and that should be replaced every year or other year. And there is equipment. I don't know if our sweeper new one can handle this itself, but there are firms out there who have the equipment that can clean that up and redo it. And the thing is too, if all we have is Lake Street, it's probably not very cost effective for that. But if we would expand and be a wider area, it probably becomes more cost effective.
I envision these pavers sitting on basically a drainage base, okay, where the pavers drain into the drainage base. It's collected by perforated pipe usually and directed to a storm sewer and to the north slip or to wherever it's going to go. Okay.
Yes.
Well, what you often have, depending on the permeability of the soil, underlying soils, is that you have a system that, the water infiltrates through. You do have the open graded base layers, and water is given a chance to infiltrate. And in cases where you do have then your underdrain, your perforated underdrain, that's usually at a higher level, so that if the water were to start to build up in there, that's not infiltrating fast enough, that's when it basically bypasses and goes into your traditional sewer. But it's still beneath the pavers.
Right. The construction cost is directly proportional to the underlying conditions. And from what I've seen down there, and I go back a long way when we had to backhoe a sandbar that was clay, and when I saw they were putting in those geopiles for the furthest east condo building, what a nightmare. The stuff that came out of there was, we have a term for that in the business, but I can't say it on TV. It's loon stuff, okay? It's organics. It was organic clays coming up at that point, okay? So deep down, we know it's not going to penetrate, but shallow, it could.
Yeah. Well, and I'd also point out that where the sandbar that you excavated was, that if you go back and look at the old maps of the city when it was first being founded, Valley Creek did enter the lake right down in that area. So that could have been deposits from Valley Creek right there too. But then again, all the areas below the bluffs are created by meanderings of various creeks at one time or another. So, it's what the creek deposited versus what was underlying.
So but I guess my point is that I'm pretty much sold on the aesthetics of the pavers, but I don't see that we're going to have a great advantage stormwater-wise. First of all, it's a short run to the lake, and secondly, we may not get that absorption of the deeper soil. So I'd be in favor of spending the money to design it. It's going to be expensive. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But it might be a look that we'd want to continue, as you say, in the downtown area, east of Franklin for sure.
Any other comments?
Kind of wondering, what's the, end cost here? I mean, right now, we have sidewalks down there that are red and stamped across the street, and they look really nice. So, I mean, to go through all of this and spend a fortune, and every 2 years, you have to redo the system. I mean, we're creating more work. Normally, you try to put something in so you don't have to keep doing stuff on it.
Well, down on Lake Street, there's none of the stamped concrete. And I think there's some on Washington, but
Yeah.
I'll let you debate the appearance of it. The problem with stamped concrete is it just like any concrete, it doesn't last forever. And then when you have to replace it, it won't match what's it's adjacent to. So, I mean, one of the benefits of whether it's the paver system we have for sidewalks on Franklin Street or a permeable paver system is you'll always have that uniform appearance of the street or sidewalk.
I'll add too that when you do a paver system like that, for maintaining it for the permeable pavers, because it has a filter medium that does need to be cleaned out, every year or so. But you also, it's more of an eternal pavement in a way, because you have individual bricks that fail, but they're generally fail at pretty much a constant rate. So those you'd get replaced as they fail, but you don't really run into unless you have a base failure, which if it's designed properly, we shouldn't. You don't really run into a point where, say, 30 years, 40 years from now, it's time to reconstruct the street again. Because if you've been properly maintaining it, replacing individual bricks as they fail, we don't have the big expense again in the future. The claims is that the system as a whole has about the same life cycle cost as an asphalt pavement. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit more, but the idea is that you should be able to maintain, as long as it's properly maintained, it shouldn't reach that point of complete and utter failure the way a paved road generally eventually reaches.
Now, what happens if something fails under it and you have to dig it up and start all over again?
Well, generally, if that would occur, you probably get a failure in one spot, and that happens under asphalt roads too. You'll find a spot where it
That's easy
fails.
to patch.
Right, and this is too. You pull the bricks up. You dig out your spot that failed, you fix the underlying problem, and you put your layers back in. You take the bricks that you pull out of the hole and you put them back in again. So in a way, it's easier to patch because you don't end up with the visible patch there at the end.
No, but trying to line stuff up after it's the original.
Well, the bricks all have space around them too. So
Correct, but you still have a base that have to replace.
Yeah, but that's a problem you'd run into on a asphalt road too, getting it to line up vertically properly.
Roll it down a little longer and it'll goes down. But I mean, that's, I just think it's nuts, all the money we'd have to spend on this. And every year to 2 years, I mean, how much maintenance have we done on the stamped concrete since it's been put in?
Well, stamped concrete is one of those things that basically reaches a point of failure and then we replace it, which
Right.
I'm pretty sure if you look at the corner of Harbor View and Pier, you could say it's probably at the point of failure right now.
Right. I mean, most of it is in the terrace, and so I guess I don't know.
Right, but how many years has that been in there?
20? Yeah. 2022, something like that. Before me, I think it was the late
Right.
90s. I think it was the late 90s it was installed.
Well, one thing too is that, if we're putting this in TIF 2 and we'd be leveraging financing from TIF 2, you have to look at it from the perspective of, does this increase the value of the properties that it's going in front of versus just an asphalt road? And that's really hard to come up with a number on, it's going to increase values by this much. But if it does increase the values, that helps pay for it by doing it also. It's right now, the Marina District area, particularly with the Marina parking lot, is basically an asphalt jungle. It serves the purpose for parking and stuff down there, but it isn't incredibly pleasant of an area just because of the asphalt. And this would help to facilitate making it a little more pleasant area to be in. You have some more flexibility with landscaping with it, because you can, in fact, plant trees that essentially you set up with engineered soil so the roots can underlie below yet the levels of the road below the aggregates on it. So you can get, better tree growth and stuff if you're going to go that route. That's costly in its own respect, though, because that's some additional systems you need. I think aesthetically, that's my main thing was pushing it for was the aesthetics in the area. Most systems now are permeable, and if we can make that work, that would be great. It fits with the green marina, since we were the first green marina in the state of Wisconsin, in that you're not dumping water straight off the road into the lake, which tends to be oily and dirty. Instead, it filters through, so the water it gets to the lake is much cleaner. So it helps keep the marina cleaner, also, or the lake and the harbor cleaner. But like I said, primarily I'm looking more for the aesthetics of it, to try to get away from the sea of asphalt that we currently have down there.
Just on a very side note, on Franklin Street, we do have the engineered soils, which are also called Cornell soils, I should point out, underneath the trees to improve essentially the growth rate of the trees. So we have that on Franklin Street.
And they encourage, because that allows oxygen to get down further, the roots don't push up your sidewalk.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's an incredibly rocky, much more rocky soil than I would have anticipated. It's like 75% rocks.
It has permeability. I suppose.
Yeah, right, yeah. So.
Mike, if I could, Mike,
Cost differences between this and,
Well, that will be borne out by
A lot.
if we, if.
200,000.
200,000.
Yeah, it says 200,000 right there.
Yeah, well, and that is a very, very general estimate. So the engineering needs to be done to determine, like we talked about, like the soils that are currently there underneath, what the drainage system would look like, and get better estimates from contractors or based on other jobs. So, I'd be optimistic that, they get better and better at laying these pavers. Actually, some of the alley work we did, we laid the pavers a lot less expensively than we did on Franklin Street because of the way they placed the pavers. So, I mean, I guess what we received from Bremer, the $200,000, I think they were shooting for the worst case scenario. They weren't trying to scare anyone, but as an engineer, you don't want to underestimate things because everyone will remember.
Yeah. Alderman Tierney.
Oh, your microphone.
I'm not an engineer, so I'm probably going to ask a simple question. But when you were talking about this, the layer that you have to service every year, do you have to pick all these up and get to it? Or, and how much of it, I don't understand that, so I'm looking for a little clarification.
Okay, so you have the pavers bricks as your surface. The bricks are all made that there's a space in between them that allows the water to flow through. And in fact, they allow so much water through, they typically do the demonstration where they take the fire truck and they just dump the water as fast as they can. It just goes straight in. Nothing runs off. But what you have in between is you have some sand in there. It's a filter medium that's meant to trap small particulates. And that's just between the bricks. So essentially what you do is you come with a vac truck and it sucks the sand out that's dirty. And then you'd go, and that's all you're taking out. Then you're putting in fresh sand. It typically would take the old sand, they clean it out, recycle it, and it goes back in somewhere else. And it's reused. So it's just a filter medium that it's an inch or two of sand in between the bricks. And that's all that you're taking out and replacing.
So it's not like you're going to be closing down this thing for a week while
No,
you're
this
cleaning, okay.
this is like a couple hour job at the most where they come through and do it. And like I said, if we have just Lake Street, it probably is expensive to be done. If we have a wider area, you can, whether we do it or we hire someone to come in, they come in and they vacuum things through and then they push the sand down behind, sweep it back into the cracks. And that's, at most a couple hour process in total.
Okay.
All right.
I do have a closing comment, okay?
Alderman Sigwart.
I'm kind of sold on the aesthetics of these. I think that they could do a lot for that part of the downtown. One concern is just like if you've been at someone's home that has a block patio, they tend to tip off at the edges, okay? It's the same thing with a street. You have to have a permanent barrier, okay? Part of the reason that the bricks that cross Franklin Street at our crosswalks, part of the reason that they work so well is that they're confined by the concrete and they sit only on a half inch of sand on top of concrete. So, and how old are they now, Rob? I mean, 12,
Yeah, 13 years old.
13 years old. Remarkably well done, okay? There's really no maintenance on those because they're not permeable. They're set in a concrete bed. Loosely over sand in a concrete bed. So I think that's pretty reasonable if they would do the design work here for $7,000. If we're going to do it anywhere in the city, this might be the place to do it.
Well, speaking in favor of it, I think what it's going to do is for $7,000, if you want to include it in the downtown plan, it's going to give you the answers that you need to make an educated and informed decision. So, in that way, the timing is right because as we're preparing the downtown plan, the information is going to be available.
All right, do we have any further discussion on this topic? You're looking for a motion?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Does anyone have a motion? Otherwise, I will move that, let's see, I got to find the right amount here. I will move that we amend the agreement with Bremer to include an additional $7,000 to study the alternate design for permeable pavers on Lake Street.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we move on to item 6D. Consider brush collection policy changes to eliminate alley pickup.
Okay, so I've been working on this with JD. Sorry, you have to listen to my voice all night. JD and Dan are both on vacation. So we currently our policy for brush pickup, which has evolved over the years, we still provide it on a weekly basis during the summer and then a bi-weekly basis in spring and fall to maximize the benefit of our seasonal employees. But part of the service, we go in front of your house and then we go behind your house too if you live on an alley. This adds about 5 miles to our route, or about 10% of the our total travel, since we have about a little over 50 miles of streets. And the problem with alleys, of course, is they're more narrow, and we do have some dead ends. And again, for our seasonal employees, that results in more training, more challenges, fortunately, we haven't had any issues with it, but navigating around tight corners, backing out of alleys, it's not just backing a truck, it's backing a truck and a trailer, and we're asking an 18-year-old kid to do this who has never backed a trailer out before, and it's, with a running chipper. So, in any case, so for the sake of essentially time, the cost isn't, it's not a huge amount. It's, I estimated at $3,700 annually. But that's about half of the cost of a seasonal employee for the summer. So, in that light, it's a decent savings, and it really seems like kind of a duplication of service, but wanted to run that past the board and see what they felt.
Rob? So right now you collect in the backyard and the front yard?
Correct, if you live on an alley.
Right.
Would this preclude if somebody called in a request that, they have brush along the alley, or would we say then, drag it all up to the front and we'll handle it? Or would we, in a case of a special request, would we still go down the alley?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed for, so I don't know what it would, I suppose if somebody had a huge tree right along the alley and they perform the work. Now, so typically if a contractor takes down a tree, we want the contractor to remove the tree. So, I mean, we can always make special exceptions. If the special exceptions morph into a regular service, then maybe we would not do the special exceptions. I could do either. It's whatever the board wishes. Judy's the one who takes the calls. You can't see the expression on her face right now. So we don't mind special exceptions.
If he puts mittens on, then we know it's really bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, if that's what you want, we could certainly, do that. It's not like we don't try to accommodate people.
Alderman Tierney?
Are there any alley or any streets or wherever, I'm just wondering about where the distance between the houses is so narrow that one of the reasons maybe they take it out the back is because it's so difficult to get it to the front. If it's a good sized branch, I mean, I have to haul mine to the front, so it's,
Sure.
but I have a lot of room where I can get around. So
Yeah, I don't.
that might be where
I
you
mean,
need to make an
it
exception.
could be. I mean, houses on alleys tend to be on more narrow lots.
Yeah, we have some houses that are on 40-foot lots. I
Yep.
believe right up here. I don't think there's anything really much narrower though, other than downtown where, you have 20-foot wide lots, but there's no trees there. It's all building.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some, but I don't know. I don't know. Alderman Newmeyer is on an alley. I don't know if he thinks this would be unpopular or.
Problem will come in with the narrower yards we got by us, is that we have so many people parking in summer in front. And then it becomes problematic where you go with the brush and it ends up on your neighbor's terrace, and then they're not happy.
Oh.
I mean, I can understand it, that it's a savings, I mean, we had a great chipping crew, but they're not gonna be here forever. They're leaving for college and other jobs. They were pretty good at what they did. I understand that from employees,
Sure.
but it's just a problem in some way, parking, the narrow lots and getting people to move their brush.
Right. So, yeah. So what you're saying is, for instance, on Milwaukee Street, there's always a lot of, for whatever reason, it seems like Milwaukee Street is more than any other street, your block has a lot of cars parked on the street.
But leaves aren't getting picked up.
Right. And so it makes these services a challenge and not so much if they're going through the alley. So, yeah, I don't know. We're really not looking back to irritate the people we serve or to create a problem. We're just see a duplication of service here and wanted to bring it up as a possible cost saving. So we've been doing it the way we've been doing it for a long period of time. We could keep doing it that way. It wouldn't hurt our feelings. It's just something we wanted to float by, and we're not going to be collecting brush until May. So if you want to think about it April. If you want more information, or I don't know.
Well, there's no more garbage pickup, correct, in the alleys?
No, now the garbage is being picked up in the alleys.
We're back in the
Yeah,
alleys.
right, only in the alleys. So
I'm talking garbage.
yeah, garbage and recycling is picked up in alleys now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought they
Right.
were eliminating that.
No, I mean, when, I don't know how many years ago. Yeah, I don't know how many years ago, but they eliminated alley pickups, but that created a problem when we went from the bag system to the cart system. So now you had people who lived on alleys were bringing bags out to the front of their house, while the equipment that the contractors use, they dump it. You can't throw the bag up there. So in any case, that creates a problem. And so myself, having lived on an alley for many, many years, I certainly thought it was far more convenient to just put my cart out on the alley than even just putting it in front of the home. It's not hard either. But in any case, I think it's I thought that was a real added benefit for most residents, that now they don't have to use a bag system. They can all use the cart system. It's just much more standardized for the city, and I think more convenient for the residents. So that's why we made the switch back to alley.
I can see like on Milwaukee Street. I mean, that you'd haul a brush out to the street and you'd have to climb over the cars to collect it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because people will see it, but they'll still park there.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll say park here, and they'll.
Right.
Well, one thing that strikes me, Rob, I know we got here that we haven't really done any public outreach on it. I guess I don't know if it'd be possible to do some outreach for people that live along these alleys and see how many of them would consider it a real hardship to have to haul everything out front. I'd like some public feedback on it, I guess.
Well, if there's a story on it, we might hear from people. But normally people won't complain until it actually happens, would be my guess is what would happen. Now, as far as public outreach, Alderwoman Postel reached out to me today and asked that we would if we could notify everyone by mail, direct mail, and I thought that was a great idea. So that's what we would do if we were to implement this policy, is we'd give everyone a individual notice before they piled their brush in the alley, right? Yeah, then what you'd be doing is picking it up and saying, this is the last time, So it just makes a lot more sense to send out a letter if we pursued this. So again,
Any additional discussion? Do we have a motion one way or another on this, or are you just looking for a sense of the board?
I guess I would take a motion either up, down, or table for later, or
I'd make a motion to table it right now.
okay.
Do you have a time frame as to when to table it?
Well, how long is it normally to take to get feedback?
Yeah. Sure. I mean, if right, and we can, so the things we can control, the website and Facebook, we can put it out and see if we get any reaction from people. I mean, people do look at these, particularly Facebook, I think. And then if Chris decides it's worthy of
January?
a story, perhaps
January.
she could include that we're looking for feedback from
Okay,
residents, whether they think it makes sense to eliminate a duplication of the service. My guess is the people who use it appreciate it.
Okay, the motion is to table this item until the January meeting of the Board of Public Works. Do we have a second? Alderman Tierney seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to then to item 6E, consider Staub Construction Corporation for UV disinfection blower chemical analyzer projects, continuous monitoring of phosphorus.
Okay, so, yeah, so this project is recommended as part of the Strand report that we went through early in the year. The equipment for this project has already been purchased. The blower, as Dan indicates in his report, was $75,000. The UV equipment was $300,000. Those were both direct purchase. The SCADA work would be a separate item. Energenics does all of our SCADA. So that would be included in the total overall cost for the project. So that the $313,000 for Staub Construction, that is purely for installation of these direct purchase items. So the cost of the purchases and the SCADA, plus the cost of the installation of this totals $703,000. I think Dan notes here that the phosphorus analyzer was part of the $313,000 total and was also part of the Strand report. So that would allow continuous monitoring of the phosphorus. Right now, we just take samples during the day. And so the recommendation is to approve the contract with Staub for $313,000.
Any discussion? No, seeing none, do we have a motion?
Also move that the award be made to Staub for $313,000. Is that right, Rob?
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? Alderman
Just one
Sigwart?
point. In your report, Rob, you say it's been awarded, but it hasn't. You
Well,
anticipated it,
oh, okay.
right?
Yes.
It's going to be awarded to the next council.
Yeah, well, since this is under the budgeted amount, I think it does not go to council. I think it does not go to council.
Really?
I will double check, but yeah, since it has already been budgeted, and it's under budget, the board has the authority to approve it.
Same motion, sorry.
All right. Any additional discussion? Yeah, we already have the second. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Project updates. Anything to discuss on those?
Well, in addition to what was included in your packet, I'll just report that the reason I'm in more casual attire today than I normally am is because we had a very successful tree planting over at the Spinnaker West Pond, and so yeah, Alderman Sigwart was able to join us. Yeah, we had a great crew. We had volunteers from Clean Test and was he? I don't think they did. In any case, so volunteers from Clean Test were there, and we had, of course, the Stantec crew. We had volunteers from Johnson's Nursery who provided the educational component of the event, and so this was. So essentially, this was required as part of the grant that we received from the Sustain Our Great Lakes Foundation, or the National Fish and Wildlife. They're one and the same, essentially. So this provides the educational component that was part of the grant, but it was really honestly, it turned out to be much more than just checking a box. I thought it was a great day. I learned some things, and it was awesome to get out of the office on a beautiful November 9th day. So, yeah, so I'll give the credit to Stantec for picking a fabulous November 9th day, which when we set the date, I was a little nervous. So, yes, right, exactly. So it was really just perfect. And we planted, watered, and protected from deer 200 plants and shrubs in less than 2 hours. So it really, and that included, probably spent at least 20 minutes on the educational part. So it just really went fast. Ross shot them all in, so we know where they all, where everything is, what the species is, and when all the vegetation, so that the final vegetation will occur prior to winter setting in. So Stantec is there's more topsoil that needs to go down. That'll be performed by highway landscapers. But the seeding and the erosion control, or the erosion matting, that's all going to be installed by Stantec. That's part of our agreement with them. And then 3 years of maintenance on it. And so normally it takes 3 years to establish vegetation. And so I'm looking forward to right. Yep, that's right. Yeah, so there'll be like wetland plugs installed and planted in spring. And so, yeah, so once everything is established, it should, really provide an outstanding habitat and stormwater quality. So it's essentially green infrastructure, which I guess is right up there with resiliency as far as a buzzword of this century. But yeah, so the green infrastructure will absorb more water, will lead to hopefully less flooding, more absorption, as they said, evapotranspiration. So so it's all green infrastructure, but it's going to look great, and it's going to be a great habitat. And part of me in about 3 years is kind of going to look forward to the first storm to see how it performs. So yeah, maybe just like a 25-year storm, not a 100-year storm. So, but it's all. I hope all of you get a chance to go out there and just take a look at it. I think the wall looks great. It's I think it's when it's done, it's going to look really, really great.
You just have
Great day.
one comment. Until you go out there, you have no idea how long the Rich Klein Memorial concrete wall is. Okay. It just kind of blew me away because I never really got up close to it until today, and that's quite the structure. And we did, I don't remember, it was quite expensive to put in the block look for the neighbors to look at. It was well worth it. Looking at it from the other side, it's just really butt ugly.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But this side looks really nice. So,
Right.
And there are people that, their homes are only like 40 feet from the wall. It's not like they're 200 yards away. They're right there. So I think that was money well spent. A lot of money, but it was well spent.
So other than that, yeah, just if there's any questions about anything in my report, let me know. But otherwise, we're kind of winding down and getting ready for next year.
Real quick, I just can't leave the Jackson Street townhomes alone.
Sure.
It's just bare naked up there, and it's I don't know what's going to happen. I would like to think that they're going to stabilize it before winter, but they're not. That's number one. And the second thing was, is there any way we can encourage ANSI to put in the force main for the fish cleaning station before we get 3.5 feet of frost, and then we can't do it in the spring because it's going out, and then we have boat traffic, and then pretty soon we miss our April date. We have an opportunity right now with no traffic there to do it. Can we encourage them? I know we can't.
Yeah, we can certainly encourage them. Yeah, that I can do. So, yes. They may be looking to. They've been honestly. They've been asking questions. They want to connect to the existing gravity sewer in the street, and we're having. Yeah, I told them no already. Yeah, several times, but it has not stop the asking.
All right. I'd also like to commend the city staff work on Heart of the Harbor. It looks really great now that that's done and open. Yes.
I was just down there after the Main Street program down at the TAP, and you saw Claude's email regarding the timer. We have a 120-minute timer on that.
We do.
And I think all we'd have to do would be to drill a pilot hole, put in a screw, and limit it to 20 minutes.
Sure.
Can we do that, Rob?
Well, I got your
Sounded
email.
like a civil engineer solution, but it would work, okay?
I have a call into Neil Yoho who installed it. When we scoped it, it was my understanding that we could set the timer to whatever we wanted it to, but I don't know how I don't know how we do that now, so I need to talk to him. So I'll get you that answer, and then I'm also going to find out, how much money are we really talking about?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know.
beautiful
I
flame,
don't know if
though.
it's pennies or dollars. I don't know. So, I know we run our gas fireplace quite a bit in the winter, and it really doesn't cost that much.
We need a quarter run timer.
Right. Yeah, that was
Put in your quarters
suggested,
to
but
run it.
unfortunately,
15
nobody
minutes.
carried. It would have to be a credit card
Yeah.
reader.
Get your Heart of the Harbor app, and you go and you put your credit card in and pay for the fire to go.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, but thanks for the compliment. I think it. I always feel that I know exactly how something's going to look before we build it because I know how to read a set of plans. But I also know that architectural renderings usually look better than the finished product, almost always. But I would say in this case, as good as Amanda's drawings looked, her architectural renderings, I would say this is one case where the finished product looked even better than the architectural renderings.
Yeah, it was definitely beyond my imagination on it too.
Yeah. It was really done well in the workmanship that our guys put in, and I did the engineering on it, but they had a number of suggestions that we incorporated into it, and it wound up being a vast improvement. So, yeah, it was really couldn't have been better teamwork than what we had working on it. So, and so much of it was volunteer. That's the best part.
And Rob, there's an event on the 18th. They're going to have marshmallows down there.
Oh, yeah, okay. Now, they're not roasting them in the fire pit, just so everybody knows. It's not in the fire. They're going to have little, I think, tabletop. Some sort of mini grills. That crossed my mind before they even scheduled this event. I thought there's going to be a marshmallow in there eventually. Not that we're encouraging it, but it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Burners.
Well, since we've already moved in the forthcoming events, do we have any additional forthcoming events?
Christmas on the corner, December 4th, parade, fireworks.
So December 4th.
December 4th.
All right. Anyone else have any additional forthcoming events? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Alderman Tierney. Do we have a second? Second by Phil. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.